Hey guys, so this video is going to be on sleep training. We actually trained Aria, I would like to say 2 to 3 months ago when she was around 7 months old, and she caught on really quickly and she was sleeping through the night and it was amazing. However, then she got sick and she was waking up every hour, extremely congested, and just she was feeling really terrible. So we decided to bring her into our bed, and then we went on a cruise for 7 days, so she was sleeping with us for those 7 days as well, and that completely threw her off. So for the past month or so, she's been sleeping in our bed, and even though my husband was all for it, he even said, you know, there's just not enough space. That's the problem. So we got a king size bed when we had a queen bed, and now the queen bed is here in our guest room, and he's just fine and he was perfect with it because he really enjoyed that bonding time with Aria. However, she was waking up 5 times through the night wanting to nurse. She wasn't even waking up and she was kind of just like reaching for me, and I would have to wake up, I would have to nurse her. If my husband was in the room watching TV and he would sneeze or anything, I would get extremely cranky because he woke up the baby and I have to nurse her again. So it was not creating a nice environment, so I decided to go ahead and go through the sleep training method again. But this time I researched a little more into it. We kind of did the Ferber method before, but not as strict, and this time I really read all the details and tried to follow it. And it's also known, I guess, as the cry it out method, which everybody thought was a terrible person, including my husband. And during this whole process, my husband was like, I can't believe you're doing this, please stop, you're a terrible person. And it was bad. But in the long run now, he's so grateful and so thankful that we went ahead and went through the sleep training. And it's not the cry it out method because you don't leave the baby there crying for hours and hours and just let them cry themselves to sleep. You check up on them every 3, 5, 7 minutes, and they know you're there. They don't feel like you've abandoned them. They're just so used to a specific pattern and you're changing it up on them. So obviously they're gonna cry, they're not gonna like it, but eventually they sleep better, it's better for them, and it's amazing. It's honestly the best thing I've done in months. And our first night, we basically put her to sleep, and one thing I'm gonna say is that you should really have a routine, especially at night. Aria gets home, Jamie picks her up from my mom's house, and they get home around 8:30. I already have dinner set up, I give them dinner, we play for a little bit, then we bathe the baby, then we change her and then we nurse her and we put her to bed. And that's what we do every single night, and she understands the routine, and she honestly was trained in 2 days. I would like to say 1, but I'll say 2. I'm sorry. And I have all the notes here on my phone, so I'm gonna be going back to my phone. But basically the first night we did exactly what our routine has always been. We gave her dinner around 8:30, hung out with her for a little bit, then gave her a bath, got her ready for nighttime, and nursed her. I would like to say that the one thing I did not do was you're supposed to put the baby in the crib completely awake, and so after you nurse, you kind of wake them up, read a book, do something so they kind of wake up a little bit, and then place them in bed. I thought that was a terrible idea. I did not want to wake her up after she was nursed and completely asleep. So I would just place her right from nursing. I would place her in her crib, which normally what she was doing is she would just feel that she was falling and just start crying, and she hated it, and that was it, and I would have to pick her up immediately after. But now she just goes to sleep immediately after I put her down. She might wake up a little bit and she's like, okay, I know I'm in my crib now and I have to keep sleeping, and it's amazing. So the first night I started nursing her around 9:30, which is our regular time, which might seem really late for you guys, but it just works for us because both my husband and I work, and we don't really get to spend time with the baby until she gets home around 8:30. So we have to put her to bed a little bit later than most babies just because we want to spend that time with her. So she would go to sleep. She completely fell asleep around 10:30 or 10ish, and so I placed her in her bed around 10:30, and she slept until 11:45. So that was 45 minutes of sleep, and she woke up. I went in there after 3 minutes, and then after 5 minutes, and then after 7 minutes, and then after 9 minutes, and It was so hard. I'm not gonna say it was easy. The baby is crying. She now stands up on the railing. So it was, honestly, it broke my heart. And it was even harder for me because once I would come back into our bedroom, my husband would just be giving me crap. He would be like, I can't believe you're doing this to our baby. I can't believe you're doing this to our little princess and she's crying and you're a terrible person. Until I started just getting online and reading things like most parents talking about the method and how difficult the first few days are and how you want to roll up into a ball and go into the fetal position and how you should be drinking and taking shots of your best liquor because it is so difficult and that you feel like a terrible person. Then he kind of just started laughing and understanding that this is the process. It's gonna be difficult. The first night is extremely difficult. You're gonna want to give up, but it is so worth it in the end. That's what I kept saying. I kept going under my covers and I'm like, this is worth it, this is worth it, this is worth it. And it was. The second night, I'm gonna include some pictures because she fell asleep on the railing and it was heartbreaking because she was literally crying so much and then she would just fall asleep on the railing, and she fell asleep like that for half an hour. I had no idea what to do. I was like, should I go in and fix her? Should I just leave her there? What do I do? But I ended up going in and putting her down and she stayed sleeping, which was a miracle. She hasn't done that in months, and when she did that I was like, thank the Lord, and we're good. Then she slept the entire night until the next morning, and that was about 7 or 8 hours of sleep. The second night we did the exact same routine. She went to bed around 10 o'clock and she cried for 5 minutes. So the second night you're supposed to wait. You don't go in at the 3-minute mark, you go in at the 5-minute mark. And so when I was about to open the door, I realized she wasn't crying anymore. So I ran back to my room, I look at the monitor, and she's completely asleep. So that's why I like to say it maybe took 1 day and not 2, because she cried for 5 minutes the second day and completely fell asleep for 8 to 9 hours the next day. And ever since that day, she's been sleeping automatic. I do the routine, our nighttime routine. I nurse her, I put her in bed, and she has completely slept all night long without waking up in the middle of the night at all. She hasn't woken up once. I know it does specify when you're researching this method that you might have times where days where it's gonna get regressive. You're gonna have her wake up maybe in the middle of the night and you're just gonna have to deal with days like that. However, we haven't had any. Basically realize that this is not the last time. You don't just train your baby and never do it again. You are going to have to do it again, but you already experienced, you know how this is, you know it's worth it, and I think it'll get easier as you do it more times. But the first time Aria stayed trained for 3 months, the only time she got untrained was because she got sick and then she went on the cruise and that just got her off. But if she wouldn't have gotten sick and wouldn't have been on the cruise, we would still be fine and she would be sleeping through the night. Also, another thing, it does say to put something in there like a little teddy or a little doll that the baby can kind of create a bond with while the baby's in the crib. Aria doesn't sleep with anything, no blankets, she doesn't have anything inside her crib, but I just found a little teddy bear and I put it in there just as a method said. She doesn't care for it, she doesn't touch it, she doesn't do anything. Now she's actually obsessed with another doll that she just found 2 days ago, and I'm gonna start putting that in her bed, but she really didn't care for the other teddy bear that I put in there. So I guess it works for some babies, some other babies don't really care for it. But another tip that I heard that did not work for us, but was that when you do go in there and check, you're only there for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes tops. I wasn't in there for that long. I literally was in there for 30 seconds and I would leave. You just kind of tap them, you're like, you're okay baby, I love you so much, you're gonna be okay, good night baby, and I would just leave. And she would just cry and cry and cry. You would do it again until she just fell asleep. And what the tip was to stick your hands inside the railing instead of going from the top, because when you go from the top they automatically assume that you're gonna pick them up, but if you go from the bottom they don't think you're gonna pick them up, so they don't get as crazy as they do if you go from the top. But my hand got stuck. I don't have a large wrist or anything like that, but my hand got stuck and it was really painful, and then I couldn't get it out, and it was kind of funny. And then my husband got stuck too and he couldn't do it. I thought it would be a great idea for him to, I would go at the 3-minute mark and I'm like, just watch me through a monitor, learn, and then you do it at the 5-minute mark, and then I'll go at the 7-minute mark. I know some people say you should be consistent and just have the same person, but I just thought that we should share that responsibility. It was hard for me to, and it was heartbreaking for me too, and I wanted help in that, in just training her. I wanted help, but he could not do it. He did it at the 5-minute mark, came back crying and said he could not do it. He could not see Aria that way, and that was it. And so I had to do it the rest of the time. But now it's so great. We put her down and I have time to do everything. Before I had to stay laying in bed next to her, and that was my night at 9:30. I couldn't do anything else. And now I do laundry, I clean the kitchen, I clean the bathroom, I do the dishes, I prepare everything for the next day while she's in her crib, and she's just more independent. She's sleeping better, I'm sleeping better. We're just so much happier, and it's amazing. I definitely recommend it. Again, it's not for everybody. Some babies don't really get trained and it doesn't work for them. It's worked for Aria, and it's worked for a lot of babies that I know, so I definitely recommend it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.